I walked out of the doctor's office, called my family later and said, I know what my problem is. I have epilepsy and so forth. And my parents said, no son of ours has epilepsy. Mm-hmm. And for 29 years, we didn't talk, and they were adamant about it. I then realized, trying to get a job, that every job application had the word epilepsy on it. And I'd check it.
Can't have the devil working for you, that's
yeah.
for sure.
And so I'd check it, and I couldn't get a job. I lost my driver's license because the doctor has to report you in to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, if you have epilepsy. So I lost my driver's license, lost my insurance.
And which all those years you drove, you had no problem?
No problem.
Yeah, no problem.
So you're in Los Angeles, 21 years old, and you have a car, and you have no license, so what do? You drive anyway.
Drive, yeah, absolutely.
And so I did. So then...
The devil made you do it, right?
Yeah, the devil. So then I went every day I'm feeling sorry for myself at this point. My family's rejected me, the church has rejected me, I can't get a job. And so I start drinking every day, and by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm drunk. And I go to Griffith Park in Los Angeles, and I think there are mountains there, but actually when I go back now, they're just hills. But when you're drunk, you think they're mountains.
They get bigger. Right.
And so I'm drunk, and I then become suicidal because of the rejection and so on. Then one day, I'm on this mountaintop, hilltop, but I'm looking down, and there's a merry-go-round for the first time. I'm drunk enough to finally find that there's a merry-go-round there, and there was. And I noticed these kids getting off and on this merry-go-round, and they're laughing and having a great time. And something hits me, and I said, I'm just going to be just like those little kids. I'm going to be positive, not going to let anything ever stop me again. And from that day forward till today, I'm 68 years old, till today, I've never, ever let anybody tell me I can't do anything again. And that was a change in my life.
So, biblically, you came off the mountain that day.
Yep.
Made that decision in your life. You got into politics, but did you get in politics because of a certain person happened to enter your life who I think all of us might recognize the name of the person?
Most people are too young to know.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
Your Congressman, you're probably right. But who is that person?
It was about a week later, I think. It might have been 2 weeks, I can't remember. A priest friend of mine came to me and said, look, I have an opportunity for you that I think you'll really help you out, because everybody knew I was struggling. And so said, Bob Hope and his family are looking for somebody to live with them, to be involved with their family. And we've recommended you, and they want to meet with you. Now, most of you don't know who Bob Hope was, but I went and interviewed with them, and they accepted me, and so I lived with them for a year. Lived with them in their home as a family member. Traveled with them, ate meals with them, did everything with them. And he turned out, the family was fabulous, but he turned out to be the most wonderful person you'd want to meet. And he said to me, to cut it down, he said to me one day, he said, look, you really feel that you have a ministry, and you think it only can be practiced in a church. Actually, a good ministry can be practiced in business and sports and entertainment, but the best is in politics. And, in a church, you can impact a few thousand people and so forth, but in politics, you can really affect thousands and thousands of people, 1 million people, if you really get involved and do it right. So I listened to him, and he was a wonderful human being to me. And listened to him, and I wrote a letter to my congressman who I didn't know, and I got a job. And
before we move forward, I'm curious, that year you're with Bob Hope and his family, what movie stars did you meet?
Oh, it was fascinating.
It had to be.
Bing Crosby, Martha Raye, Lucille Ball, just had dinner with, he'd have them over for dinner, and it was hilarious and great, and I could tell you great experiences. It take a while, but it was fabulous, and he just treated me like one of his family.
That's fantastic.
It was a great opportunity.
So you wrote that letter to your congressman?
So I my congressman, I went to Hope and I said, look, I took your advice. I've got a job. And he asked me with who, and so I never heard of him. Why didn't you come to me? I could have got you somebody famous. He said, is he a Democrat or Republican? And I said, he's a Democrat. He said, a Democrat? Why would you go to work for a Democrat? And
the devil once again made it.
Yeah, the devil made it. But I left and went to work for a guy who became like my father. Bob Hope and I remained great friends until he died. And he was very supportive of me all the way through. The congressman I went to work for was just wonderful, except I had seizures during that period of time. I still have seizures today. And my medicine, my drugs basically control them pretty well, but I still have seizures. But my congressman was fabulous. He believed in me totally, elevated me to be his chief of staff, and then when he retired, wanted me to replace him, and that's how I got into it, and I replaced him. And then I was committed to doing something about disabilities, and I wrote the ADA based on my experiences. I didn't want people to have to go through what I went through.
When was the first? When was the first bill introduced? What year was that? Do you remember?
I introduced the first bill in 1986.
mid-'80s.
86, 87, something like that. The first bill was introduced with Senator Lowell Weicker of Connecticut. And then he got defeated in that election by Joe Lieberman. And then I put it in the next Congress, and Bob Dole was the leading Republican, or the leading senator at that time. And Tom
So you had
Hartley.
bipartisan support.
Always bipartisan.
Yeah.
Disability issues, in my view, should not be partisan. They should always be bipartisan.